Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Dr. Joseph Spence and Dr. Sandie Okoro OBE. Dr. Joseph Spence has over 30 years' experience working in the education sector, including 14 years as Master at Dulwich College. Joseph is now Chief Executive of the Schools Partnership Alliance, which works to foster meaningful collaboration between the state and independent sectors to benefit all children and young people. Dr. Sandie Okoro OBE is a preeminent lawyer and equal rights champion. She has served as General Counsel at several international banks and is the first female Chancellor of the University of Birmingham. Sandie uses her expertise and platform to champion women and people of colour to achieve greatness through their national and international initiatives, and continues to inspire many people around the world. We are honoured that Jo and Sandie are judging our Education Choices Awards this year for the second year running. It's such a pleasure to have you both with us.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
You've both had remarkable careers shaped by a commitment to promoting equality, diversity, inclusion and belonging across education and both your professional lives. Can you each tell us, was there a defining moment early on in your lives or careers that made you realise the importance of these things? Perhaps, Jo, if we start with you.
Mine's a very tiny one and maybe a surprising one. And then I bet we're going to have more from Sandie. I'm going to say that my whole way into that 30 years in education came by accident. I arrived at Eton College for one term only, telling the headmaster that I didn't believe in independent education. I didn't want to be a teacher, and found my vocation. And what was interesting is that from the beginning, as being an outsider to that sort of education, I don't think I'd been in an independent school before I arrived to teach at Eton. Within 5 years, I was master in college, which is the housemaster to the King's Scholars. And the thing about the King's Scholars at Eton is that they can be on full scholarships, full bursaries, 100% plus, or they can be people who would afford to be at Eton under normal terms. And I suppose running a house of 70 where there were people who could buy and sell Hong Kong and people who were from one-parent families in Slough, I knew that they could work as one. I knew that there could be mutual respect. I knew that they could learn from each other. And I suppose that, for me, on you asking that question, Chloe, really struck me as where it began, because I stayed within independent education, but with a real drive towards, come on, can not all of this be made more open to everybody? And in a tiny way, that began with my housemastership in college at Eton, and has then gone on in each successive role from there.
And Sandie?
I think for me, there wasn't perhaps one defining moment. There've been many from childhood to, to the present day in a way. But if I can pick a standout one, maybe, it was when I was at primary school, and the teacher went around the class and asked everybody, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, oh, I want to be a judge. And she turned around to me, Jo, don't be aghast at this. Don't be aghast. It was a long time ago. Well, I am quite young, so not that long, but a longish time ago. And she said, I'm sorry, Sandie, but little black girls from Balham don't become judges. And I thought, even then, in my primary school years, well, if they don't, they're going to now, because I'm going to be the first or whatever it is. Of course, that's not necessarily what I've achieved. But the point was that having grown up in a time where you didn't see people doing the kind of things you might want to do around you, you can't be what you can't see kind of thing, was almost a fact that therefore if you couldn't see it, you couldn't be it. And so from that point on, I've realized, even to this present day, people still get that kind of blocker when they're told, tell others about their ambitions. Whenever I mention that story, people say, oh, that happened to me, so and so, and that was relatively recently. So what I've realized, I think, in my time, is that talent, with no doubt, is universal, but opportunity is not. And it's what, working on EDIB gives people the opportunity to let that talent shine. Otherwise, you get the kind of experiences that I've got then and now that might put people off. So that was my first one. When I reflected on it as an adult, that was like, wow, that's not right. That something has to change.
Absolutely. And you spent your life making sure that it does. Jo, you are now CEO at the School Partnership Alliance, which promotes impactful collaboration between state and independent schools. You have a strong background in promoting these values, and this also includes something we've discussed before, building a strong bursary scheme throughout your time at Dulwich College, which is still being celebrated today. What led you to take your new role as CEO of the School Partnerships Alliance? And why do you think these partnerships are so important?
To me, I pick up from exactly where Sandie has left it. There should be opportunity for all. I, every school I've been in that has had so much, all I've really wanted to do is share it beyond the gates. I couldn't understand how there could be any value in saying this is what we've got if you are in a neighborhood, in a region, in an area, in a country where those opportunities are not available beyond. So to me, the work of the School Partnership Alliance builds on the work I was doing in the Southwark Schools Learning Partnership while Master of Dulwich College, which is creating partnerships of equals between the schools, realizing how much they can learn from each other, creating those atmospheres of mutual respect between state and independent schools, building those relationships which can lead to the walls being brought down for teachers, for leaders, for parents, for pupils. So to me, the twin pillars of any school's social mission, and I'm interested how many of the schools, the big independent schools, of course, are foundations that had a foundational mission based on providing education for those who otherwise would not get it. My 21st century version of that had two pillars. One is access to the school itself through substantial bursaries that make it. Dulwich couldn't be a cross sector of London proportionately, but someone from every background was there, and partnership, sharing that then beyond the gates. Because as I keep challenging myself in every school I visit, and I visited 150 since I took over this role in January 2025, you can't be a great school, an outstanding school, if there are schools around you that are in special measures or require improvement or have needs. Surely a great school's duty is to share. And it's that collaborative spirit that I'm loving brokering between schools across the country, but most notably in those partnerships in place where you get people to meet who maybe won't have met before. We have a forum this week at Eastbourne College, and I know I'm bringing together schools across a 35-mile radius who probably have not been in each other's company before, but I guarantee by Friday there will be things they'll be able to do together.
And Sandie, you have experience working for many high-profile international organisations and now dedicate much of your time as a speaker, inspiring women to greatness, and have set up, in your time at World Bank, the anti-racism legal task force in response to the George Floyd shooting. What motivates you to continue working to promote EDIB and inspire other women? And how has this been influenced by your own experiences throughout your career?
Thank you, Chloe, and great to hear. Very inspiring, actually, what Jo was saying. You have to have a vision to see these changes coming through. So really interesting to hear what Joe was saying. So I set up the anti-racism task force at the World Bank. It's not something that I'm doing now, but it was something we did following the death of George Floyd to really explore some of these issues and to realize that some of the challenges that are there don't land the same way everywhere. And just to carry on from that, so what motivates me? I tell you what motivates me. Excellence motivates me. And this is what it's all about. This is not about handouts or anything or a leg up just for the sake of it, of being, and I hate this word, by the way, woke. It's because excellence is everywhere and is out there. And as I said, and as Joe repeated, not everybody has the same opportunity to really, spread their wings with that excellence. And that is the challenge. It's about excellence. We don't want to lose excellence. We want it everywhere. And so what motivates me in one word is excellence. And it's wrong to lose it just because not everybody has the same opportunity. This country, this world needs that. And excellence can be found in obvious places and in really unusual places. And if you don't have various programs like the one Joe was talking about and others, then you don't find it. And that's what motivates me to do what I do. And if I could give an example, it's very much in the news now. Arsenal, sadly, they didn't win the Champions League, but they have won. I think it's the Premier League. So, they are. Example, if Arsenal said, we're only going to take players from now on from a 5-mile radius of the stadium, do you think they would have the same excellence in the team? Probably not, right? And probably if you said that for every football team or any sporting thing, it's only a 5-mile radius of wherever that training stadium is, you wouldn't get the same excellence. When you start to spread your wings and you look in unusual places and you look for talent and you give talent that opportunity to shine, that's what this is all about. We do it in sport all the time. So we have to do it in life and we have to do it in education. And it's not about, it's only about excellence. That's my view. And I think we don't see it like that enough.
I agree. I think that's a perfect point. Well done. It's not often I go quiet. Sandie, you attended the University of Birmingham, and as did your son Max. When you went there, you were on a full grant. And you are now the first female chancellor in the university's history, and have spoken about the University of Birmingham as a place close to your heart, for its focus on creating an inclusive environment for talented minority students. This really follows on from your Arsenal point. What does genuinely inclusive higher education look like in your view, and how does it impact students like yourself?
Well, I think you can see diversity is a very visual thing, right? And it can be a numbers thing, right? I think the belonging part is very important in the B in EDIB, because you can create that and you can give the scholarships and you can give the opportunity. But will people feel they're belonging when they get there? Because often if they're not, they'll go, or they don't thrive in the way that they should thrive. So this is why this belonging piece is very important. I always like to think it's a bit like you're invited to a party, which is great. That's the diversity bit, that's the inclusion bit. But when everyone is dancing the conga, are you asked to join in? Are you asked to lead the conga? That's the belonging bit. Are you really included? And I think this is what the University of Birmingham and many other universities do very well, is you can see it on campus, the inclusive nature of things, that there is particularly the clubs that get started by students, there's something for, you can find your people. If you don't find your people, if you don't find your place, no matter how clever you are, no matter how much support you may have, you will not succeed as well as you should do.
Lovely.
And one of the things the university does that I think is unusual for a university, it has this scheme for people in care, children in care. So if you're in the care system, you're not likely to do as well as others who are not in the care system from an education perspective. And I think the stats are really low about going to university from the care.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Joe knows this better than I do. But we have a system that starts when children, I think, are doing their GCSEs. to get them familiar with university, to invite them to the university, to get that, which is what parents would be doing, at that age. But they don't maybe have that support. And then when they get to the university, it's not just hello, welcome, off you go. This is where you can find your course. There's support there. For children from the care system. And that's what's really, really important. And one of the guild officers right now at the University of Birmingham came from the care system. And I'm often talking to him about that. And he said, without that, he would never have ended up like a university. But so you've got to look at all aspects of this. And I just give that as an example of that it's all very well, but the belonging, the actual, when you get there, to make sure that you don't fail when you get there, is also really important. So I think for me, I got a full grant. I look back and I wonder, would I have gone to university without that? Who knows? I don't know, because I think the finances might have been an objective. Would I have gone on to do even further education in terms of my law qualifications that cost more money, that were paid for 100% by my local authority? I don't know. Those were, the golden days.
Halcyon days.
Yes, they were. They were. And I was incredibly lucky, which is why I want to give back now, because my education was given to me by the taxpayers, and which were my mum and dad were taxpayers too, but by other taxpayers as well. So my dad was a teacher, and my mum was a nurse. So I'm not so sure in this day and age I would have had those same opportunities. And so that's why I feel about this passionately, like Joe, that it's the opportunity. We're talking about people already talented. Let's give them the opportunity.
I love, Sandy, that you've two words have just struck out. If we had sort of signs flashing, one would be excellence and the other is belonging. Because isn't it the belonging that makes it real?
Exactly.
The danger with the E and the D and the I is
Yes.
that they can be a tick. You
Yes.
can't just tick belonging. There are either children or young adults who know that they belong in that school at the University of Birmingham. And then there are those who may have got there, but then are struggling because they have not been helped to find their tribe, to find their people, to
Exactly.
find their role models. And I think that's why it's not just, oh, let's add another initial to the EDI agenda. I think the fact that in the last couple of years, I think those of us who've been most engaged have ourselves added belonging to it. And doesn't that relate back to the point about it all being about relationships? It's
Exactly.
finding people who are comfortable in each other's space, who may come from very different places, who suddenly realize most often that they share more than divides them. And if we can play on that and work from that, that's where progress comes from.
Indeed. I could not agree more. The belonging is so important, Chloe.
I agree. Social mobility is something that as a magazine we focus on, but obviously both of you are very involved in many ways in making sure that social mobility is something that we're all aware of, and trying to enable children and families from all backgrounds to have access to the many opportunities that we have in the UK. And many organisations are suggesting that social mobility in the UK has stagnated. We talk and work with the Sutton Trust, who stated recently young people born today have similar income mobility rates to those born in 1970. Could you both tell us more about what you feel, why you feel social mobility is crucial, and what more could be done to support this in education in the workplace? Perhaps, Joe, if you begin.
No, thank you. I mean, I don't want to distract us from the keynote that you have brought together two people who believe that every child has a right to progress and ideally probably to go further than the generation before, because Sandy and I and you, Chloe, are part, I think, aren't we, of those generations where it was just taken as read. Every generation was going to do better. And I wonder if, no disrespect to my own children, but isn't it interesting? It seems to have plateaued. We've gone so far. It's not necessarily going to happen like that. And even as we read that into other situations, other familial situations, there is just that sense that mobility has become a little more, something to be a bit more nuanced. which is why I'd say I'd want to start by saying that I think it's social justice that needs to be absolutely forefront. And then the work I do, I'd sometimes say, notably in partnerships rather than bursary work and access, is about social amelioration. You get people to understand each other's settings and talk to each other across them, and then see where that leads for all of them together. So I hope I haven't distracted us, but I think it's really important to talk about social mobility at the moment, but really define what we mean. And to me, it means we've still got to go to work on those being left behind. We've still got to go to work on those communities, perhaps part of a global majority, but a minority in our setting who are still not achieving unto their potential, their talent, their excellence. And that includes white working class who are very interesting in our work. I can't, and in my work as a head teacher, when I look at who took up the opportunities for scholarships and bursaries, who comes to the partnership events, we've got work to do to catch the people who've been left behind, who feel we don't need no education. So I think it's got to be a lot more targeted than once it was. It was once just a comfortably climbing graph of there are working class people who are going to become lower middle class, and on we go. And it's not like that anymore. It's going to be so much more difficult. So I think amelioration, justice, and then mobility follows. I hope isn't too theoretical or technical a way to put it, but I think if we're going to get the mobility, we've got work to do before we even create the people who want to be mobile. And that's the real job.
Sandie.
Yeah, I'm nodding away at what you're saying there, Joe. Could not agree more. And if I can just add to that, very what Joe has just said so eloquently, um, where we are is where when it comes to social mobility, if you're willing to put the hard work in, right? Because it is hard work. I mean, excellence, you don't get excellence without hard work in any sphere. And to go to university, to excel at anything, to get a scholarship at somewhere like Dulwich College, you're looking for excellence, you're looking for talent, but youngsters have to believe that if they put the hard work in, if they have the talent and the determination, they will get somewhere. And to me, that is social mobility, right? If because of where you're born in the country and which classroom you're sitting in means no matter how much hard work you put in, no matter how determined you are, no matter what talent you have, you're not going to get somewhere, that is not social mobility. And we do know that, for all its glories, we do have a quite a strong sort of class system in this country that does mean that social mobility, like you said, Joe, can be a challenge, right? Because sometimes the opportunities are not there. So, because we don't know where the next great scientist is going to be, could be sitting in any classroom anywhere in this country right now. But without the ability to say, right, okay, if you're going to put the hard work in, we can see you've got the talent and we've got the determination to succeed, that where you are sitting, what your challenges are at home, whatever it is, will not be a barrier. The only barrier is going to be you and how much hard work you can put in. And I feel that was, for me, that was a truth in my circumstances, right? I put the hard work in, I did what I needed to do to get where I needed to get to. And gender, race, or whatever was not going to be a barrier. And so we need to make sure, particularly for next generations, that we are really addressing this and not thinking it will just happen by osmosis, because it doesn't. And there are so many things that, I talked about children in care, etc. There are so many things that can really challenge so I do think social mobility, it's not just an economic issue, it's a fairness issue, and we're talking about fairness here overall. So I'll add fairness to excellence and belonging.
Perfect point. It's of course why we set the magazine up originally, because I was working with a Muslim lady in Croydon, and she was talking to me and saying that her community didn't know about the opportunities and the bursaries and many of the private schools, and equally that because there was no family history, they didn't believe that their children had the right to go to apply to these schools. And that's why we've made sure that the magazine is for every family, not just select families of certain backgrounds. There have been many changes in the education sector in recent years, including obviously the very I don't know what to say, the kind of the introduction of VAT on independent school fees, which has had a very dramatic impact on many schools closing. And it's also impacted bursaries and scholarship funding that not in all, but in some have been the first thing to go. Why do you feel it's so important for schools to continue to offer these transformational opportunities? Jo, I'm going to start with you.
And I'll be very quick, Chloe. I think you've said it. There could be such a danger that they're the first things to go, but they should be among the last things to go. If the independent sector is going to be trusted for what it said was its social mission, then in times of difficulty, unto what's possible, and no one will, what's the use of a school doing it if it's going to face closure? But I'm loving the fact in most of the schools I'm in, there is still just that commitment. We will do what we can. We may have plateaued for a while. We won't be going on to our needs blind future that we were planning, but we must do this. And I think this is a time for action, not retrenchment. If we are going to overcome the divide between the 6 or 7% and the 93 or the 94% between independent and state education. Because also all partnership work and all bringing of people together serves everybody, not just those who are the beneficiaries. And I think that's something, if we had longer, Chloe, I'd love to elaborate on, but which most of the schools that truly commit to access and partnership understand. There is enlightened self-interest, there is social mission, there is a sense that this is a moment to grasp without completely ruining the finances on which you're based. And what's most notable for every story of, oh, School X has pulled back, is the number of schools who are going on and saying, this is the moment to engage. This is the moment we prove our credentials. We know what is out there and what needs there are among a wider population, and it's our duty to serve them directly through bursaries, indirectly through partnership work.
And Sandie.
I totally agree. I think something that's sort of really obvious here as well, which is that the bursaries and scholarships, schools wouldn't be doing them if they didn't work, right? If they didn't actually work. So they work. And that's the most important thing, is they work for the schools, they work for the pupils. So like Jo, I agree that it should be the last thing to go in a way. And something that Jo said right at the beginning, if you can't have excellent schools in an area, or you shouldn't rather, that have failing schools around them, all boats should rise. They should share facilities, bring everybody up. And so I think that idea that the scholarships are an essential part of independent education. You can't have one without the other. To me, is very, very important, and is a justification for independent schools existing. Right, you open the doors as much as you can to people who have got the talent, have got the excellence, but maybe not the opportunity. And it goes back to my point. Excellence and opportunity, they have to go hand in hand. But I totally recognise schools have to balance the books. So maybe they're going to have to get very creative in how they do that. But it's a shame if it is the first thing to go, because it really should be the last, because I think they go, like Jo said, hand in hand.
A final question. I know, Jo, that you've got a train to catch, so I'm going to direct it at you first. What are your hopes or plans in your role that you're now in for the future of EDIB and social mobility within the education sector and beyond?
Lovely. Well, I will do it, but precisely through the partnership lens, and then let Sandie pick up and no doubt speak more generally. To me, I mean, why do I do this work? I do this work because I believe that schools working together, notably across sectors, can create a proper national system of education that can make a difference, and particularly for the most disadvantaged children. I'm only doing this because I believe that the sort of partnership work we can do can help children with transition from school to school, can help us make teachers where state and independent school work together to create teachers in shortage subjects, can make real. I mean, I think most of us feel what a great year it was last year into this year for the curriculum and assessment review, the white paper. I'm really taken with the idea that we are, for the first time, I think, really striving to be inclusive in education. Well, let's look to make that real. And if we're going to make real the fact that every child deserves an enriched education of creative arts, sport, adventurous activity, clubs and societies, what's bread and butter in almost every independent school, then we're going to need the independent schools to support the state in making that happen. And that's my way of saying we should be working as one, inclusively for everyone, to make real the great ideas that so far have not had that much money put behind them. So don't make the independent sector the enemy of the state. Make it support the state in its rightful sense of inclusivity, inclusion in education.
That's a wonderful point, Joe. If you want to dash and get your train, please do, because
Really,
I know
will you
that
miss
you're...
me? Will you? Do you know, I really do have to. My apologies, particularly to you, Sandie.
No problem.
I bet you're going to have a
So
fantastic time with Chloe.
we'll reschedule another. I think there's a lot more that could be
There
being
is.
said, and we
I
just
think you
need
might
more
have to have
time.
us for a part two after we've
Yeah.
met. I can really tell you what we think together.
Yeah.
Bless you, everybody. Forgive me, but I am going to race
Go
for
get
the
your
train.
train. Go get
It's
your
great
train.
to see you. Take
Go
care.
get
Bye
your
bye
train.
now.
Thank you,
Bye, Joe.
Joe. Sandie, um, go on. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, I think my thoughts are, Chloe, is that wouldn't it be my thoughts and hopes? Wouldn't it be great if we got to a position where we didn't see potential overlooked because of race, gender, background, financial circumstances? That's my hope, right? Um, I think that that we have so much talent uh, in this great country of ours. But the education system maybe doesn't always find that talent. And what I'm talent in all areas, right? We're not just talking about huge academic excellence. We're talking about talent in so many areas. Everybody is talented at something, right? I mean, huge arts culture in this country that is really encouraged in schools, which is fantastic. But if we are overlooking this and are not finding the talent and nurturing that talent, I think this is where that's problematic. So my hope is that we're not talking about things being overlooked because of people's circumstances. We're knowing that talent can flourish. And I think in the education system, we need to have an education system that unlocks that talent, not stifles it. And this is, as Joe was just saying, this is where the independent sector can work with the state sector to make sure that doesn't happen, and that one can they can balance each other out very, very, very well. And I'm going to give one last plug, if I can, for the arts as well. And I just want to say, particularly to any parents who are listening, there's been a tendency now to think of the very sort of, science subjects and as that's where you need to go, to get a job in the future with AI and whatever. And I'll tell you something. Yes, maybe, but also you need people who are going to be fantastic thinkers, because with AI, that wisdom is going to be needed, and that's we're seeing lots of philosophy graduates, for example, at the university being approached for really interesting jobs in the AI sector, because that thinking, that wisdom will always be needed, because that's what we bring as human beings, and the arts are something we bring as human beings. So don't always just think that talent has to be something like super academic in the sense of the sciences. It is also the arts, which are very much needed because that's really what makes us smile and makes us happy, as well as scientific advancement. So it's all of this when it comes to talent. It's just not down one particular channel. And it would be wonderful if no one's potential in that is blocked by their own personal circumstances, whatever they may be.
Thank you so much, Sandie. And I look forward to, I think we're going to have to do
Another
a
one.
second podcast.
I'm always here. I'm here if you need me.
I know. I'll speak to you soon.